I wonder if people are beginning to awaken to the fact that this world seeks to keep everyone as ignorant as is possible and ask the question, why? I wonder if people are beginning to recognize the amount of purposefully crafted misinformation, disinformation, outright lies, propaganda, and twisting of the truth into a pretzel. I wonder if they're beginning to see that for what it is in mass and begin to ask why. I wonder if people are beginning to see the control mechanism. The masses do not seem to be able to see through the sorcery, the mind control, the trance that they've been put under. Haven't recognized the propaganda, the influence of the predictive programming in their minds throughout the decades. The masses haven't begun to ask these questions, and I wonder why. Because if nothing else, even children, when they recognize things, always ask, why? Why, Mommy? So they recognize something. They have an awareness that causes them to ask, why? And these are just mere children. Now, look upon the world and see how many questions a sentient species, a critically thinking, aware, alert, conscious species should be asking. Think of the questions that they should be asking, and asking why. And ask yourself why they're not, or if they are, how they haven't arrived at answers that would generate any degree of motivation to take action in the world that they exist in. Is it profound ignorance, profound distraction, profound levels of mind control and brainwashing, all working in concert to prevent the awareness in the masses that causes them to ask why, thusly causing them to seek the answer to understand what's truly going on, thusly generating any level of desire or motivation to get off said asses and take action in the 3D reality that they exist in to change it? Could the magic of Hollywood, could the influence of the media, and whatever connection that those that built those mechanisms have to Kabbalic sorcery and other such things in captivating the mind, influencing more perception, and providing some sort of a vehicle that we're unaware of for the casting of deep sorcerer's spells over the minds, over the perceptions, over the awareness of those who are, for instance, lapping from the trough of the mainstream media, and in doing so, this sorcerer's spell, so to speak, this mechanism by which the perception, the awareness, the necessary aspects of the human consciousness to be functional and working and perceptive enough to see the reality of what it is that's actually going on. I mean, when you really sit back and think about it, what does it say to you about what has already been done to the minds and the perceptions? What does it say about these people, their level of awareness, their level of consciousness? It's not a slight to them. I think there's been long-term and short-term influence and manipulation of these aspects of the human being in order to bring this to be the manifest reality that it is become all of us. So, since we live in a world where perceptions, beliefs, are so varying between person to person, think about it. Beliefs, perceptions, ideologies, both religious and political, and morality. When you think about what those things are, how they drive, motivate, influence, instigate, and all those other words, the human into action and behaviors and all this stuff. When you have people who are still stuck in a mindset of politics and religion, that when you look at what those are, they're people whose mindsets are such where they're sheepish, or they need to be led, they need to be guided, they need a leader. They're not really, to the degree that a human should, thinking for themselves, self-directing, self-guiding. In some ways they may be, but when you look to your quote-unquote leader, it shows a sheepish or more cattle-like, not so much thinking, looking outside of yourself, putting your power outside of yourself. There's still something not quite there. So when you have a population all over the world in the varying ways that these political ideologies, these religious ideologies stunt and limit the mind. I mean, think about it, people. Religion, from Latin, religio, or religare. When you look at it etymologically, the root of the word means to bind, to tie back, to thwart, forward progress, forward motion. And when you think of the word government, from the Latin, gubernare and mente. Gubernare means, depending on the context in which the word is used, gubernare means to govern or to control. And mente, meant, government, Latin, mens, mentis, mentis, or mentum, means mind, to govern or to control the mind. So religion, under this umbrella of ideology, religion binds, tiebacks, thwarts, forward progress and motion. And look at the reputation and the history that religion has had upon the earth for as long as we know. And then look at what government is. To govern and to control the mind. Look at what they're doing. They're all marching in lockstep. They've all gone 100% rogue. They've all basically betrayed their own people. They've become traitors to their own countries. Look at this. And at the same time they're doing this, beliefs, perceptions, ideologies, and morality vary so much from person to person, country to country, culture to culture, religion to religion. We can't even come together cohesively because there's virtually nothing that the collective of humanity has as the glue to bind us together as a common body of humanity, so to speak. There's some seriously fucked up equations or problems that exist here when you think about what it is we believe about what we are versus what seems to be here and actually manifesting, and considering what we are, what we think we are, what we believe we are, what we want to think we are, as far as all these things we can supposedly do with our shut-off DNA and all that other stuff, what actually manifests here is very, very different. We don't see anybody secretly having DNA turned on and becoming like, something with supernatural abilities and powers. And if that happens, the government observes them, monitors them, and keeps them for themselves. So we don't know it. Are we really what we think we are? Are we really what we've been told we are? Because when you compare what we're told we are to what's actually manifesting through everybody else's delusions, these things are still taking place. Through everybody else's unawareness of what's actually going on, these things are still taking place. Through their ignorance, through their refusal to see the truth, accept the truth, want to know the truth, these things are still happening that are fundamentally going to change our world and the human experience in it, and many of them don't care. It's imperceptible to them. They don't have the awareness, the knowledge, or they're too caught in their goddamn bubble of I only want to take in what I believe or with what aligns with what I believe, or I don't want to take in the negative man because, well, it's going to, throw some bad juju on my hash and my mellow or something. It's really a shame that due to the varying psychologies as well, and when you think about the childhood wounding of the vast majority of the planet in the ways that affects the human being psychologically through the development of the human into adulthood, then think of the attacks that have been levied upon humankind through the developmental stages into adulthood, and then on adults through the vast, let's just say the last 4 generations, from the beginning of the boomers generation to now, and how much effort has been put forth into destroying, in as much as they can, or toxifying, perverting, twisting the perceptions, the understandings of the masses through all the vehicles by which they deliver their content to our minds, ultimately crafting the perception of most people. The media, cartoons, Hollywood, Disney, the radio, a talk show, all this stuff that they've been using, that we grew up with, that we've become comfortable and familiar with, and we think they wouldn't lie to us, and they do all this stuff. It's hard to explain it because there's very specific strategies and tactics that they use to give it a sense or a feel to draw you to it so that you'll take in their content, whether it's advertising, whether it's pretty people, whether it's sex appeal, whether it's whatever it might be. All of these things and efforts that they put forth to draw you to the content that they create, television, Hollywood, Disney, whatever it is, to influence your mind, what you think, to influence every single aspect of your beliefs and your perceptions that they can. And unless or until we live in a world where everyone in the world understands that this is actually happening, there are so many things that are going to keep us divided from one another, that are going to become more and more and more exacerbated, if you will, as this process that they plan on putting the world through manifests, as it begins to move forward more and more and more. The impact that they have had on the minds of people over the last year is beginning to be alarming, in that over the short term, people might be able to shake that shit out of their ears, so to speak, shake it out of their brains. But this has been a year consistent, and we're going to start seeing the byproduct of their efforts in the behavioral patterns of the masses, where these beliefs and perceptions have solidified, and at the same time, they become toxic. When you have a species like us that's ignorant and free will, that has different perceptions, beliefs, religious and political ideologies, so the brainwashing and the programming on the ignorant, it's amazing. And when you run into people who are in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, who haven't woken up to this stuff yet, they're still functioning on it, and I'm telling you, they get really pissy, they get really nasty, they can't, in many respects, have intelligent dialogue if you disagree with them, and it's just amazing what has been done to each of the respective generations. I mean, when you think about how the younger generations don't want to listen to, scoff at, criticize, look down at elder generations that in their current state of knowledge, awareness, consciousness, whatever it may be, they're not capable of seeing it, they don't want to see it, they don't want their bubble of perception popped. Some of them are very vocal about that and very aware of that and will tell you straight up, I do not want my bubble of perception and bliss popped, get that away from me. And some will tell you politely, and you either respect it or you don't. It is the weirdest thing how people are responding to living in reality and how few actually want to see it for what it truly is.
That's all, folks.